Greetings Internet, welcome to Aaron Plays, and I hope you're doing fantastically well on this fine morning. In this episode I'm going to be doing a start of a rules breakdown of Ambush by Victory Games. I'm going to try and run this parallel to my actual playthrough. So if you're here, hopefully you've read the explanation that this is not going to be the continuation of the game. This is going to be a deep dive into the rules. On mission 1, I was playing along for the first time with the rules. I made quite a few rules errors. So I thought, I'm rereading the rules and I've already caught two things I was like, oh, did I it wrong in mission 2 first episode. So I thought, maybe it might be useful to do a separate breakdown. And also as I'm reading the rules again, going through them, I can project that through to anyone who wants to watch. So if you're here, it's for the rules, a deep dive, so on, and I will be shooting an episode 2 for the mission as it begins. So this is going to be episode 1.1, and there might be lots of points. There might be an episode 1.2, 0.3, depends how far I get in the rules in each one. I don't want it to be too long, and hopefully, if you haven't played this game and have it sitting on the shelf waving at you saying, play me, because I would suggest play it because it's fun. And that's the main reason why I play games, and hopefully you play games. It's fun. It gets this going, but primarily it's fun. So get it out, get it played, and have fun. The rules of play in all their glory. This is quite a thick rule book. We're talking overall, once we go beyond the basic rules, I think it's 27 pages, 23, 45 to 6, 27 pages. And 2-column text, there's quite a lot there. There are a fair few diagrams and explanations and such forth, but not as much as you get in a sort of a GMT game nowadays. So yeah, it's a lot of reading to be done. So I'm hoping that doing what I'm doing here will help that process, because it is a process. Once you've read 27 pages of rules, you can get to play one scenario, which has a few little extras onto it. Beyond that, then they go into campaign game, which is what I'm doing, and then it mentions vehicles. So this is why I'm thinking, because it's got vehicle rules, how to do vehicle combat, firing against vehicles, and then after, so it's another, we're up to page 33, so it's what, an extra 6 pages of rules. We can do mission 2. Hence why I'm thinking, if you watch the previous video, there's bound to be either a German half-track or tank or something along that line, or maybe even just a Kugelwagen. Or I might get a Jeep, we don't know. I don't start with a Jeep, but I might get a Jeep. And then after that, there's another mission here, which has again got quite a short paragraph with special rules and so on. So that's 3. So it makes me think either something vehicle-wise, considering the amount of rules that they've gone through with vehicle-wise. Yeah. Then you got mission 3, and then mission 4, which everyone I've heard all on the internet said this is a little gem stroke bastard. It's got special rules, nearly 2 pages of them. So that's mission 4, and then there's another 3 missions beyond that. Unfortunately, they're not in chronological order. I'd have preferred that, because that makes the campaign make a bit more sense, but I'm not going to be too critical at this stage. So that's the rules as they're laid out. So let's start going through them. Also, as you can see on the side, there is my squad. If you watch again episode 1, sitting there waiting, tapping their heels, going, what's going on, why can't we start? And we go, you've got to do a bit of basic training, mate. You can't just rush off and attack these Germans not knowing what to do. Can you? Grumble, 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 grumble. Yes, I'm known slightly for my eccentricity sometimes. Anywho, so that's waiting for me to do, and I will be starting doing that as soon as I shoot this video. Anywho, the rules of play. Solitaire squad level combat. So, at least the first page, or actually technically the second page. First page is a nice picture. Second page is a index, is that? What do you call it? Yeah. It's not really an index, is it? It's a... I've forgotten the word you would use. Contents. Table of contents. Sometimes the brain just doesn't work. So that's 2 pages out of 27 gone. So we're down to 25 pages of rules. Another thumbs up. Okay, we're getting there. We then have a page, this was saying introduction, and this actually does give a nice little synopsis of what the game's about. It mentions it's a solitaire game. You can actually play it multiplayer. You split the squad up. You can, so that's a cooperative game. So considering this is 1983, cooperative games weren't that common. So you can play it speakity English cooperatively, and you could play it multiplayer even more. So I'm not sure how it would play, and I might try that at some point. I might start a separate campaign at some point using that. But yes, so it's a nice little introduction saying what the game is trying to achieve. One of the key things here, it says that thus you are and your squad are an elite group that get into extraordinary amount of combat and adventure during your missions. You will actually have more combat than a normal unit would have. It also mentions somewhere on, I think it's on Board Game Group, that this is more towards the Hollywood side of World War II rather than the deep dive simulation. Well, I would agree with that. Yes, there are some definite Hollywood moments, but I'm on about good Hollywood moments rather than cheesy Hollywood moments. Then we come on to the lower part here, which goes on about the game parts, components, what makes up a German soldier. I went through this in the previous video, but in the age of completeness, let's just zoom in on that little bit and emphasize. You might not have watched episode 1. How dare you? Okay, so this represents one of the actual cards you get, and there are a shed load of these cards, as you can see. On here is quite a lot of information about this individual German soldier. First off, he tells us it's German 1, so it's the first one of many, as you just saw. It also tells me what counter to use for him. This is what the little Q there. Okay, it tells me he is a soldier. It doesn't tell you that they've got different types. You've got officers, NCOs, and such, snipers, vehicles. But this one tells me he is definitely a soldier. It also tells me I will gain 1 VP if this guy comes on the board. Then it tells me his stats. So his initiative. Is it initiative? Is that the right word? Identity letter, type, activation, victory point, weapons, characteristics. Yes, it is initiative. Sometimes I get blank moments. So it is initiative. PC is perception. Weapon skill. He's not particularly good on weapon. Every shot he'll take a -1 on the dice. And his movement point allowance, he can move 3. No, that's 3 movement points. So what do these numbers actually mean? Well, initiative is determining how good he would react and where he will actually sit on the activation table. He'll be quite low. In other words, he'll be one of the latter guys that will activate in a turn. Perception, that will determine how good he is at seeing things, perceiving what I'm doing, reacting to me moving on his flank. You might have to make him a perception test, and he would have to roll that or below on a D10. So again, not great. Weapon skill, as I said, he'll take a minus on his shots, and movement, he hasn't got fast movement. It's 3's as low as you can go. Tells you what he's armed with. It's a machine pistol. So whenever I look at his shooting table, I'll always look at the machine pistol. And then you've got various die roll modifiers. die roll modifiers. That's not correct. You've got various dice of what he does. So when he comes to activate, you look at the condition level, which I'll explain later, of the game. The current state of the game is effectively what we're talking about. And on the condition level, it will tell you here if it's a condition level 2 or 3, you look at this table. If it's condition 4, you look at this table. A is a special condition, which will apply to him at some point. And S is self-preservation. So yes, the A is a special reaction. The S is a self-preservation. And then there's some notes on here. So it says that this chap actually assists German 49, unless 49 is wounded or inactive. I presume 49 will be a weapon like a mortar. Does the game have mortars? I haven't seen a mortar. So, but it definitely has like machine guns. So machine guns. And then there's other thing. Use. It's got a little star next to it, in which case use for the rest of the mission if condition 5 occurs. Self-preservation still applies. So little special orders for each of these particular chaps. Let's turn the page. So that's, hey, another page done. So, let me zoom out. There we go. Yes, my squad is now hidden by the rulebook. Haha, there they are under training. So what we actually got here. So then you go through view sleeve and mission card. Right, okay. So this is where we come up with this part of the game. So if you own the game, you've obviously seen this, and it's not necessarily that straightforward. So you got blank one, and then each mission, as you can see, zoom up. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, it tells you this is mission 2, which I'm just about to start. Advance and show, well, the name of it, and the condition 1. So this is the first card that will slot in this book. Whenever it tells me to increase the condition, or to whatever condition it might be, I would turn this over. It's condition 2, 3. On this particular mission, there are 3 cards with 6 actual sides. It's also, the way to look at the conditions is how active or proactive the Germans actually are. So condition 1 is probably they're sleeping or resting and not much is happening. But as the game progresses, the Germans become more alert, they become more active and start moving a bit more. And it gets harder, which is what you'd expect. You know, the board starts with no German. Well, in mission 2, starting with no Germans on the board. But as I move through the actual board, Germans will become active, and the condition will increase as they become more alert. There are 2 lots of text on here, most of it in black, but wherever you see red text, that will be a German moving. So I'm not going to hone in too much on that. And so these, I've split all 3 in this sleeve. And then the way this actually works is if I move into a hex, every hex I move into, so let's say I move into R15, which is over here, I've got to look at the open box that corresponds. Now, there's no open box here that's in R15, but there is up there. It tells me there's an event. So then I would roll on the event table. If it was a German moving, it would ignore the event and we would do S15. So it's telling me the German in R15, because that's what I was looking up, would move to S15. And that's how this works. So you actually move up and down. Now, the way events work, you actually roll 2 sets of dice and you then look at what's under the RE14, which would give an event. There's more details on here. This number in here is a sighting and a paragraph to read. A sighting 1, that means that I would then tick on my little platoon, squad platoon. I'm going a little bit more detail here than I intended to on this part here, but I would actually write on here that I've had a sighting 1. If that S1 appeared again when I was doing a check, I would ignore that paragraph because I've already had sighting 1. And then when it comes to the paragraph, I've got to read that out of the paragraph book. Whoop, I've got to zoom out again. There we go. And in here is all the paragraph, all the instructions that I get when I read a particular paragraph. So that's that part explained, which is that section of the rules there. Then it goes on about the mission map. Okay, now when we look at the map, it's, for its time period, it's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. There are two maps in the core ambush box set. Mission 1, which I played back in January, used map A, and this is map B. Map A is countryside, map B is a town. These are all buildings. So as it says here, map A shows farm country with a raised road surrounded by hedges and fields. Map B portrays a small village built around a crossroads. Okay, and a railroad station nestled in a small valley. Okay, you've got hills here, raised road, railroad, hills here, and hills here. So the yellow is, so the white's lowest level, yellow, and then there's some green over here, which is the highest level on the board there. Then we have, oops, knocked the camera, here a breakdown of the different terrain and what it actually represents. So you've got stream, okay, a wooden bridge. There is a wooden bridge, and oh, need two hands to make sure the camera don't fall over. So we have the wooden bridge going across the stream over there. It then mentions stone buildings. So these are stone buildings. So the stone looking colour. And then we have wooden buildings, which are the brown looking colour, like wood. Goes through there. Wood's hex. So these are wood hexes. And then brush is this little stuff here. So this is a wood hex. So let me just zoom in there. Oh. So we don't have a big tree, little trees, but that's, even though there's a bit of a brush symbol here, this would be a wood hex because the majority of the hex is wooded. That's a wood hex as well. These here, what are those? That's interesting. Is that on the actual chart? I don't know what that is. I can't see. That's definitely brush. Is that brush with just the green missing? There's nothing else. Let's just show you on here and zoom out. As I say, this deep dive is also me learning. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be that particular symbol on this particular chart. So I would probably treat that as brush because there's brush here and there's brush here and all the rest of it. But interesting. Okay, so we've got a rough hex. What's a rough hex? Do we have any actually showing? Oh, looks like right at the top there. Rough over here. Can't see anywhere else. Oh, I suppose there's one just here. Then we have crest lines and embankments. Okay, so here, oh, I've got the camera in the right place. Come on, sibbers. Okay, so here we have a crest line running through the hex. Here we have an embankment. So obviously we're going up levels, but an embankment has something to do with line of sight. When we come to the line of sight rules, I'll explain that, and we'll explain this as well. But effectively, I believe a unit here can see a unit here, but it can't see a unit further away, or vice versa. But we'll go into the details of that when we can. So we've got a paved road, railroad, and dirt road. Oh, and as someone mentioned in the comment, this here has a second floor, hence why it's got the deeper. So is it a church with a steeple? Yes, so there's special rules for that particular building, and again when we come to it we'll go through it. But looking at the mission that I'm playing, second story, steeple, German sniper. I will watch Band of Brothers too, though he was an American sniper, but yeah, good place to be. So that's the map board. Still a bit about those two. It also mentions more than one type of terrain might be depicted in a single hex to give a more natural look. However, only one type is actually used for game turns, and that's what's in the majority. A hex containing any woods pattern is a woods hex throughout the hex. So even though, and this is where it's different from sort of ASL line of sight, if we had, say, a unit here, different levels, but so it's maybe not a good example, but let's say these are all on the same level, shooting down here into this hex here, this wood hex occupies the whole hex, and probably, what does it block? I can't, again, I'm going to have to read the line of sight rules. This is why I'm doing this, but that whole hex is woods. So again, firing along something like that, from that center dot to, say, that center dot, going through that hex, that would block because the whole hex is woods. Also on the map, we have this. And this is probably the core engine of the game. So let me just bring that up a bit. As you can see, I've got markers already on here. And they're actually meant to start in the unaware column. So 1s, 2s. These refer to my chaps and their initiative ratings. So this is where the initiative of the individual soldiers is important. So my squad leader Ambrose, who's denoted by this counter on this chart here, who has, that's the A part of him, Ambrose, 4. He has initiative 4. So when I come to roll to see who's active and how they're active, and he will be moving up and down in this column here. The various parts of this chart, you have a 2-turn section, a 1-turn section, a panic section, complete and unaware, and inactive. So all my guys are active, because they will be when they come on, but they'll be unaware. That means they don't know who any Germans are. I'll explain how all this chart works and all these numbers when we come to it. But this is, as I say, the engine that drives the game in one of the modes. There are 2 modes that this game is played in. But let's carry on looking at what else is on here. We have a German activation number, and there's a little counter for that. Can I find it? It's got the word German activation number on it, and no, I can't find it instantly. And the moment I press the pause button, guess what? Found it. There it is. So I'm just putting this here because there's no Germans on the board, but as soon as there will be, I will then roll to find out what their activation number is. And again, I'll explain that a little bit later. And then there's just that terrain effects chart that we've already had a look at. So that is the map, and that gets us through this part. We're now at the playing pieces. Well, that's my dudes. Got to sit in there. So let's just zoom in on who we actually have. So I have 8 guys in my squad, and each of these counters has 2 sides. So this is his standing side, and then I'd flip him over when he crouches. Then if he decides to go prone, I'd need to place a prone marker on him. So if he's hitting the dirt, chewing the cud, I would place a prone marker to denote that status. So you guys can, whilst active, can be in 3 fingers, different states. Standing, crouching, prone. And the German counters have the same. Let's just get a nice German unit. So, hello dudes. He has the same, so he's got a standing, crouching, and then I'd place a prone marker on him. to denote his status. The American counters run from A through to H in your squad, and there are a couple of other counters if you encounter, let's call him, a non-player character, not part of your squad, who might come into the game. I don't know if he will. I think there's two of them. The Germans are running through letters through to X on the actual counter itself, as denoted by, again, remember this card, I'd use the Q counter for this particular soldier. Okay, the next part of the rules, so we've got the playing pieces, boop. Action round markers, well, that's what we've already gone through. My guy's sitting there, and the Germans have action round markers as well, as denoted, and they will also sit on the chart depending on the initiative of the actual German, and will sit on the action chart as well. So if we had German M in play, it says 3. If he's unaware, he'll be sitting on the 3 column on that table. Okay. Heavy weapons. I'll place them up to show they are too large to be carried by one soldier. So there's heavy, medium machine guns for the Americans, LMGs for the Germans, and these require multiple guys to carry them. For example, a medium machine gun requires 3 port boxes. Ooh, what's a port box? What's a port box? Let me bring up and zoom in on one of my, this is my entire squad. And again, if you watch the previous video, you would know what all these sort of mean. But I have got an error to correct on this, which I will do shortly. I might actually probably do as part of this video. So on here, so we look at Mr. Hudson here, a port box. Each character has got 2. A medium machine gun requires 3. So that's why it's going to require more than 2 guys to carry them. Sorry, more than 1 guy, therefore 2 guys to require them. So on here, this guy is in his first port box. He has got a semi-automatic rifle, so the G1. You've got ammo boxes. You've got 6 ammo boxes, and these here are not command points. I can't remember what that actually means. If I actually just went a bit lower, it tells me what it means. CPs is combat points. It's effectively how well that character, what did that character do in the scenario. So if he actually shot a German, he would get mentioned with a combat point in there in his box. If he knocked out an enemy vehicle, he'd get a combat point. And with these, when it comes to the campaign, you can gain them their experience points and hopefully improve some, especially Hudson. He definitely needs to improve some of his actual abilities. Not a great soldier, probably just arrived on the front, bit nervous and worried, etc. I didn't want to go into full detail on this chart yet because we're not that part of the rules, but that's what it means by the heavy weapons. You're going to require more than 1 dude to actually carry it. Personal weapons is what's on the actual sheet and carry, such as their M1s and submachine guns and so on. Now, I don't need to have counters for those, though I have placed counters for the ones that do have, more as an aid memoir for me, that Dylan, character D, has got the BAR, that squad leader has got an SMG, and he has got the satchel charge. Now we come into my errors, which I'm now going to correct in this video, and I will have to mention in the beginning of the mission. I'm skipping a little bit forward in the rules here, it goes on about squad generation. Because I was continuing with the same squad, I didn't really check on how many weapon points they were using. So if we go back on here, at the top, squad points is the guys I've bought. Weapon points is how much the weapons they've got. So I initially just went, yeah, okay. Then I did show that I used a quick workout sheet. There we go. And I split it up. Got weapons. I changed some of the weapons. I brought in a satchel charge, bought 30 ammo clips and so on. I then checked, being sort of anally retentive, to see if what was given on here matched that 38 points. It did, from the original squad sheet, which is actually in, where is it? In the rule book on that page, and it didn't add up. I was thinking, oh, is there an errata on that? No. What I needed to do was read this section here, which I hadn't done because it had given me the weapons. And I thought the points. What happens when you buy a weapon is you get a free clip of ammo with each weapon. So I bought more ammo than I required. And that's where I'm going to tweak my little sheet here. Effectively, I've got 8 personal weapons, so I've got 8 ammo clips that I don't need to purchase, which means, because you pay for 1 point per ammo clip, what I'm going to do is actually lower my ammo by 3. That gives me 2 purchase points back, which I will use to buy a second satchel charge, because I'm still worried about German vehicles. Can't afford a bazooka. That's 8 points. If I was going to buy a bazooka, I'd probably have to get rid of the automatic rifle. So I'm going to now remove 3 lots of ammo to give me that 2 points, and that 2 points allows me to buy a satchel charge. The other mistake I'd made was I put a satchel charge, and who's got its bell? No, I'll put it on to his as an ammo type. It's not. It actually uses a port point. So I'm going to change that as well. Okay, so 3 lots of ammo removed, and the satchel charge is now moved to the port boxes. So I've just moved his from there to there, and I've given a satchel charge to Cornwall, and I removed an ammo, removed an ammo, and removed an ammo. So 3. So the numbers all tally up. And this is one of the reasons why I decided to do this deep dive of the rules, because I'd missed that. So, yeah, and it made me think, maybe I should do something a bit more about that. However, that means we've jumped slightly ahead of where we were in the rule book. So let's go back. So we're on to page 5 here, which just explains the different counters and what they are and what they do. So we have got vehicles. It tells me the only US vehicles available are Jeeps and tanks. German vehicles include a scout car, Kübelwagen, an armoured staff car, a tank destroyer, which is a Jagdpanther, and a tank, Panzer IV. So there's no Tigers. Each German vehicle has an identity letter, etc. And then it shows the counters here. There will be minefields and booby traps, different types of blast counters. A ford across that stream if we find one. And then they call these landmark counters. These are various things that will be on the map in various scenarios. And I might discover these. I believe in the last scenario I had a crashed plane. I say I believe, I know it was a crashed plane, but I never got to it. So, yeah, I don't know what was in that crashed plane, because it blew up before I actually managed to get one of my lads in there. Wound counters, incapacitated. So that will actually move the guy from the game from an active stated into inactive. KIA, kill in action, I think also makes him inactive. I don't think there's any zombies in this game. And captured. Pro encounters we've gone through. Events. So when we do an event check and an event occurs in a hex, we put this counter on. That means there won't be another event in that same hex. German activation number, and it mentions a little bit there being a second floor. Wow, that was a quick run through that page. Boom. Next page is the squad record. Well, we've pretty much done that, as I've shown you with the squad. So in actual fact, we're running slightly ahead here. We've got the soldier character initiatives with initiative perception at the bottom here about what the characteristics are. It also mentions the different types of dice that are rolled in the game. Uses 2d10. Well, there are 2d10s. So I'm using, because I'm, again, that AR, I'm using green for my guys, blue for the Germans. And so in most situations, you'll be rolling one die roll, either a die to obtain a result from 0 through to 9. So it is a 0, not a 10. Then when I need to roll 2 dice, I'll be using these. Red is almost my 10s, blacks is my unit. So that would be 74. However, there is another way of rolling the 2 dice, where you add the two numbers together rather than taking it as a percentage. And that would be 7 plus 4, which is 11. Oh. Mental maths. So yeah, that's 11. And then you add those together. And 2 zeros would be a 0. So result from 0 through to 18. And this is used normally when you're actually trying to find something on that paragraph table, the whatever they call it, the mission cartridge viewing sleeve. That's the dice. On to the next page. Hey, we've seen this. That's the default squad in the game. So when I started mission 1, this is what I used. Exactly what was written on here. I just named the dudes. And I kept it simple. A for Ambrose, B for Bell. Yeah, because anything that simplifies something for me. All the stuff on hit sightings. So if you remember me mentioning earlier about sightings, so a paragraph has an S with a number. The first time you would then mark it on here, and then any subsequent time you had a paragraph which had that same sighting number, because you ignore that paragraph. It just speeds up paragraph searches. The conditions, the scenario will be starting condition 1, and as I show you on mine here, I've got now numbers written here, and these were given to me by the actual notes in the mission. So condition 1 is 0 to 1. What does that mean? Well, we'll see when we get there. But as you can see, the numbers increase. Well, there's a slight decrease there, 0 to 7, 0 to 6. I believe that has something to do with when you determine, does the condition increase from level 1 to level 2? On a 0 to 1, it would do so. But we'll double check that when we get to that part of the rules detail and breakdown. So we've done that page. Whoop, whoop. Okay. Which then gives us, this is all breakdowns of the different stats. The one thing that's not on the sheet there is command radius. Well, I say it's not on the sheet. There is actually a little tick box. You can see that right at the top of each of the guys. If he's a commander, he gets a tick. So I've got 2 commanders. So I've got my squad leader, Ambrose, and Bell, who's my assistant squad leader, and they're marked. And you pay more points for commanders. What does a commander give you? That's what's written here. Command radius. So US and German soldiers that are commanders have a command radius of 2 hexes. Each of these hexes is 10 meters. What that is saying, that's basically shouting range. Yeah, with all the din of combat and so on. So you can give orders up to the 2 hexes. Also, guys like to be within the command radius. A US soldier with this characteristic is called a commander, and the commander box in the section that we've just covered that. Germans will have NCOs who will have command ranges as well. And it might say in instruction, if this German soldier is within command range, do this. If not within command range, do that. And so forth. A soldier with a command range can help other soldiers stay in command, give other soldiers extra turns, and make other soldiers aware. As in, oi, Johnny, watch that dude! Such as that. Terms used during play. Your active, inactive, target, and success and failure. So, what is an active soldier? Well, that's defined here. A soldier is active unless he is incapacitated, killed, or captured. That's all we need to know. So, all my guys are starting active, and as soon as a German comes on the board, as long as he's not in any of those 3 states, he's active. Then it goes on about vehicles. Well, we won't worry about vehicles when we come to it. Inactive. Well, so that's a soldier that's not active. A captured, killed, or incapacitated soldier is inactive. An inactive soldier cannot be fired upon. Yeah, Geneva Convention. Don't fire on an inactive soldier. So if he's lying on the ground and he's wounded, no, not wounded, because that's wounded is fine. He's incapacitated. You can't target him. What is a target? A target is an active soldier or vehicle. An inactive soldier or vehicle cannot be the target of fire. Okay, and success and failure, which is the last part on this section. An active check, perception check, or conduction resolution can be either successful or a failure. Such a check or resolution can be harmful to your soldiers and still be termed a success. In most cases, a die roll of 0 is always successful, and a die roll of 9 is always a failure, regardless of modifier. Okay, so that covers, well, we're up to page 8 in the rules. And I think we'll do one more section, which is the general course of play. I'll explain what that actually means. And we've already done squad generation. I've sort of briefly mentioned it. There was a weapon status. I won't go into any further details on that, because if you're going to start mission 1, you have a squad already generated. If you want to generate a squad yourself, follow this in detail, because I made that mistake with that weapon. So, but the general course of play. So it then goes on about this is an unusual war game. Back then, this was an unusual war game, back in '83. It says it's not overly complex, and I would agree with that. It's not overly complex. It then goes on, there's 2 actual ways that things happen on the board, 2 ways of play. There's operations and turns. You start the game in operations mode, and in operations mode there is no movement points. You can keep moving as long as you don't trip into turn mode. And how do you trip into turn mode? When you activate one of those Germans. So the way you got the play outline, so you start a mission, pick a mission, blah blah blah. Yes, we can do that. It then says place the mission card for condition 1. We'll do that in the view sleeve, and then you will actually you assemble your squad, do what you need to do. I've already assembled my squad, done what I needed to do there, worked out my activation numbers. Let's just take that German counter off, because that's not in the game at the present moment. And I'm going to then set them up ready to go onto the actual board. When, for that list of soldiers initiative rating, place each soldier AR, done that, and then mentions what I've got to do for the Germans when I've done that. Commencing operations. So I enter my soldiers 1 or more at a time onto the map as instructed in the mission briefing. So in this mission, remember, I have to come in between, I think it was those 2 hexes there. I'll double check that when I start, because I knocked that counter. Boom. Okay, so you enter and you follow, you move them through hexes. So as they go through a hex, you read the paragraph. If the paragraph has an event, you activate the event, and then you put an event marker in the hex. If at any point one of those paragraphs or events activates a German on the board, doesn't mean like a German sniper attack with no German appearing on the board. It needs to be an active German unit that comes on the board. You stop operations and you begin doing turns. And then, or they call it rounds, okay, rounds, turns. When a German soldier, yeah, that's important actually, rounds is doing the whole of that sequence there. A turn is an individual character's turn. So I've got to remember that terminology. So a round is when we do all of that. A turn is in each individual soldier. So when a German soldier or vehicle is activated, rounds begin. And then you do what it tells me about where the German's located and such forth. And then once there are no more active Germans, remember that keyword active. So if there's 2 Germans that are incapacitated and 1 killed in action, we'd finish that round and then begin operations. And then I'll begin moving all my dudes until another German activates or the mission ends. So it says here, each mission ends in a different way. Okay, yeah. I know in that particular scenario that I'm playing it ends when I've accumulated, when I've gone through every building on the board. And then I count victory points. It then says points are gained and lost for my young guys being hit. And then campaign update. If I wasn't playing a campaign, just playing a one-off, I'd ignore that step, but I am playing a campaign, so I would go through that step. And that is the general sequence of play. Let's come back up and have a chat with me face to face. Okay, I went maybe a little longer than I intended to. I have a tendency to waffle, and if you find it waffle, then obviously you can switch off and go on to the actual play. And I've only covered how much so far? The first 9 pages, well, 9 generation. Yeah. So the next page is page 10, operations. So we're effectively a third of the way through. I will be doing another video explaining this probably after I've done the episode 2 of the mission. And when it'll go, because this is going on about operations, I'll be doing operations in that. I will try not to actually belabor the rules in that video, though I will mention it occasionally when it impacts quite a lot on the actual game. So, yeah. If that was helpful, let me know. If it wasn't helpful, let me know. If you think I got into too much detail, let me know. Any comments, as I've always said with my channel, would be much appreciated. If you could do me a favour, hit the like button, and if you haven't done so already and you like what I do, hit the subscribe button. It all helps the channel, promotes it, and helps it. That's all I can say with regards to that. Otherwise, enjoy your gaming, have fun, and until next time, bye internet.